Welcome to Remember Me by Intervivos, the show about living life to its fullest, leaving a legacy, and deciding how you will be remembered. And now, your humble team of expert planners taking the legal world by storm.
Hi, welcome to Remember Me. I'm Glenn Wagstaff. I'm here with Mike Black in the studio, and today we're talking about planning for professionals. And, last week we were talking a little bit about the American Sniper, Chris Kyle, and about how a lot of professionals and people who are successful have higher net worth have a target on them for litigation and for, other issues that can come up. And sometimes as everyday people, we're afraid to be successful because we think that target's going to be painted on us, right?
That's
so
right. Yes, absolutely.
So
well, I still want to be successful, regardless.
Well, money is beneficial regardless.
Regardless.
But a lot of times, this is something that we want to explore today. Just what does it mean to really address things and strategize and plan for the future as a professional? And so we've invited Ray Ramirez from Revolution Financial Management. He's down in Newport Beach, California, and he works with a lot of business professionals and business owners. And so Raymond's on the air with us today, and we're going to get to know him a little bit. And then next week, actually, just for those of you who are planning on listening in next week, we're going to talk a little bit about the tax planning strategies of presidents of the United States. It's President's Day next week, and we're gonna touch that topic. So
that'll be excellent. I'm looking forward to that topic.
Yeah. So Ray, can you hear us?
I sure can. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you. Yeah, perfect. So
awesome.
We're super excited to have you on the air with us. And tell us just a little bit of how did you decide to get into the financial planning space and planning for professionals? Like, why get into that industry?
Well, Glenn, I've been an entrepreneur for a number of years, and I actually, when I was much younger, had businesses that I owned in a couple different industries: the computer industry, the entertainment industry. And even though I was able to be successful in these different business ventures, I sometimes found myself at a loss, especially in regard to understanding asset protection or financial protection for business owners in general. And it was actually because of that very reason that I began learning what is available, not just to high net worth business professionals, but also for small business owners. And as I started to apply the principles that I was learning, I realized there was a huge need out there in our communities for sound business asset planning and protection, being available to everyone, business professionals, but also families and individuals. So it was at that time when I decided to switch gears and switch career paths to finances.
So, it's interesting because a lot of times we sit down with financial professionals that, have the opportunity to work with business owners. And I always ask them, how many of these business owners have really done their planning ahead of time? How many of them have addressed their tax planning issues or their business succession planning issues? How many of them are really prepared for retirement? Like, is it common that most business owners have already looked at these things?
Unfortunately, it's common that a lot of them have not addressed these issues, and they've been in business for a number of years. And it's usually only when something comes up, like a tax bill, where they actually start to take into consideration proper tax planning, or when they're getting ready to retire. It's another area where they just really don't think about or they don't plan for until they get close to their retirement age. I mean, there's a lot of different factors, but what I found typically is they're not advanced planning. And I find that to be the critical component to making sure that whatever, it is that affects their business, from asset protection to legal liabilities, they're ready.
So when we talk about, planning for professionals or, higher net worth individuals, generally speaking, where are the more complex situations that we're talking about here? Like, who are the professionals we're talking about?
Well, the professionals that we're talking about are doctors, dentists, attorneys, entrepreneurs, CEOs of startups, architects, accountants, service providers. Like IT service providers, automotive repairs, just to name a few.
So like doctors and people who, chiropractors, those people who we generally think of, they make fairly good income. They have professions that they're working with people, and oftentimes they have, licenses on the line that they're responsible for. What are their, major concerns? Like, I mean, why should they be looking into planning?
Right. Well, this is something that I always mention when I'm maybe teaching a class. Is a lot of these business professionals, like a doctor, like a dentist, went to medical school, a dentistry school, but not necessarily business school. So some of the areas of the concern that I've found with these business owners is, as mentioned, tax planning, but for both current and future taxes. Oftentimes they're not even thinking about it until, like I'd mentioned, the need for a tax plan comes into play, especially when they need to pay a bill. And usually, at this time, they're either looking to either liquidate or sell their business, and possible capital gains taxation becomes a very serious concern for them. Another situation that we find that's a concern is when they want to leave their business, right? When they want to leave their business as a legacy to a family or a key employee or to an organization, such as a nonprofit. And of course, that is all possible, but there needs to be a strategy in place long before any of these occurrences take place. Another thing is business structure that comes into mind. I've run into many, many successful businesses, and they've been operational for many years, and yet they're still not properly set up in regard to their structure.
They never registered. They never did documents.
No, they're not even clearly defined. What category of business they fit into, whether they're a sole proprietorship or a partnership or a corporation, S Corp, LLC. And it's really vital that they have this clear understanding of the difference between the different structures, and then make sure that they're situated in the proper one. Because what we found is not being in the correct structure can result to some various serious tax and legal considerations, either positive or negative.
And sometimes they're operating at millions of dollars a year, and they still haven't addressed these things. And then, again, we talked about having a target on their back, right?
And that target could be not just the public. It sounds like it could be other people, like the government.
And, if you have a business agreement goes bad, or you have a partner that leaves the business, it's one thing when you're, little mom and pop shop, and it's another thing if you have, an operation that's bringing in $1 million a year. There's a lot more there to argue about, right?
Yeah, especially when you have employees and things as well, right?
So these concerns become very important. So before we kind of shift gears, Ray, what are some of the main concerns? We talk about the 5 Ds in planning. What are the main concerns to plan around in a business owner's documents and in their situation?
Right. Well, those 5 Ds do come into play, Glenn. Of course, it's death, disability, divorce, dissolution, and dementia. And what we need to understand is that one or more of those concerns can materialize at any given time. And we all know we don't usually plan for a tragedy, right? They just seem to happen. And any one of those circumstances can have a very serious detrimental effect to the business professionals financially for themselves. But otherwise, without a comprehensive plan in place, it can have serious detrimental effects to the operations of the business. Now, often for instance, when a professional passes away, sometimes the business simply closes, whether or not that was the owner's intent or not. And common too is when a business professional becomes seriously ill, as with dementia or disabled because of some serious illness. Under those circumstances, both the personal finances and the company's ability to continue business as usual can be seriously jeopardized, right? And this can happen even when a key person, like a partner or an operations manager, passes away or becomes disabled. That too can have the same effect as if it happened to the owner, because they didn't plan for that key person not to be there. Another thing is divorce. Unfortunately, there's always that possibility of divorce. And oftentimes during a divorce, the business can be the most complex and valuable asset of the marital estate, right? So certain states have community property laws. That's one of the concerns that's often not taken into consideration, right?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely things to remember. So when we come back, we're going to hear a couple stories from Ray of people that you've actually worked with. This is Remember Me. Ray, before we break, can you just give your phone number real quick in case anybody wants to reach out?
Yeah, I sure can. They can reach me directly at area code 714-343-9206. That's 714-343-9206.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back in just a little bit. Welcome back to Remember Me. I'm Glenn Wagstaff here with Mike Black and our guest from Southern California, Ray Ramirez, financial professional. Just wanted to point out to everybody, we're talking about strategies for, if you're successful, if you're a professional, if you're a business owner, things that maybe you should consider. But of course, we're not offering any legal advice. If you want that, you should sit down with a professional and schedule an appointment possibly with somebody. But before the break, we were talking about some of the things that business professionals should be considering as risks to their business or to themselves personally. And we talked about, death, dementia, disability, divorce, those sort of things that a lot of times they've just never planned around. So, Ray, tell us about a situation where you've sat down with somebody and as a business owner that they really hadn't addressed these sort of things, and just how did this come up? Give us some context.
Right. Well, there was a time when I sat with two business partners, and one of them wanted to actually sell and leave the business, and the other one wanted to keep the business intact and operational. Problem is, there were some state licensing considerations that were making the exit strategy for the one partner very sticky. It almost forced the entire business to shut down entirely. But we were able to meet with both partners and come up with a comprehensive financial strategy, a comprehensive business continuation plan, which they had not had in place previously. And had they done that, we could have avoided a lot of the stresses and just some of the situations that they found themselves in. And it actually turned out to be okay for both of them. But again, planning ahead could have avoided a lot of the situations that they had to encounter at that time. At the same time, though, we were also able to solidify each one of their retirement and legacy plans, because that's another often overlooked financial situation with a lot of business owners, is they're not even thinking about retirement as they run their day-to-day operations.
So I think that's a common thing. You get to the point where one of the business partners wants to exit, or maybe both, all the business partners want to exit. They want to sell, right? What are the concerns that come up at that point? Obviously, there's some tax concerns. What are some other ones?
Well, it's not really a one-size-fits-all, Glenn. However, things such as a comprehensive buy-sell agreement or business continuation agreement can be one of the most important documents a business owner or a co-owner will sign, especially if the owner passes away or a partner is forced out or chooses to leave, right? One thing that we discuss with these gentlemen, and I do with a lot of my business owners, is having a proper life insurance plan as a key component in such an arrangement, especially if one of the principals of the company passes away. But oftentimes, this is the determining factor of whether the business continues or simply shuts down. But what we found with a properly written life insurance plan, the proceeds in the event of death of an owner can provide needed financial support, not just for the family, but also stability for the company. Having proper trust in place can be instrumental in deferring capital gains or potentially protecting business and personal assets from lawsuits. That in addition to having a strong retirement plan could avoid a lot of heartache and pain for a lot of these business professionals and business owners. And there's a lot of vehicles that they can use. They just are unaware of it. Cash value life insurance being one, annuities, trusts, such as charitable remainders trust can possibly help defer or lower their taxes. We've used those and other strategies to improve the rate of return and effectively manage our clients' risk in their retirement plans, and specifically something that works for them. But again, it all boils down to planning ahead.
Yeah, having a game plan ahead of time before those concerns come up. Because if you have a partner that becomes disabled and you don't have a disability policy in place, too late to get it, right?
Exactly.
And and so a lot of times as business owners, we don't think about these things until it becomes something that's urgent, because you're involved with the day-to-day operations of just running things and getting by and helping things to be successful. You turn around and a lot of successful entrepreneurs and successful business owners turn around and they realize they've built something big, and at that point they think, oh well, I got to protect this. But along the way, anything could have happened that could, make that difficult. I was meeting with a business owner the other day, and he's talking about how he's uninsurable. He couldn't get a life insurance, but he wishes that he would have put it in place, because his exit strategy is, the employees are going to take over the business after he's gone. Well, he needs to put something in place to do that, and in lieu of a life insurance, maybe a sinking fund or something that they're contributing to over time. But the very best thing is to have it in place before those needs happen, right?
Exactly, and you touched on something too when you talked about the employees, and I'm not saying that's overlooked, but that's definitely an area of improvement when it comes to even their retirement plans, especially for small business owners. And it actually reminds me of a recent client that I worked with who had that very concern about having a retirement or savings plan in place for his employees. And so what this employer did was he actually invited us to come and conduct a free financial education seminar for the whole company, right? He just wasn't concerned just about his own legacy planning and his own retirement, but that for his entire company. And what we found is many of his employees were also interested in legacy and retirement planning. And we educated them as to everything from proper budgeting to start saving early, to having a proper life insurance plan, and things such as a trust and a will. So this goes far beyond just the professional or the owner, but touches to their employees.
They say that if you take care of your people, they'll take care of you, right? And
absolutely.
and if you're concerned about what would happen if could the business operate if Sally isn't at the front desk, right? And if she's not there, how long is it going to take us to replace her? So we need to make sure that we have a plan to make sure that we can replace her if needed, but also if something were to happen to her, her family's taken care of, the business is taken care of, right? And especially for key employees, that becomes very important. But for all the partners, of course, right, because they have a very important role in the company, and beyond the partners, anybody who really contributes to the operations on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's super important to make sure that not only is the business owner taking care of their needs, but also making sure that everybody in the organization is aware of what they should be considering. And I think having that example of doing the planning for the business is also a great example. That's a great story. So, Ray, tell us, as you sit down with, doctors and dentists and attorneys, they have concerns for malpractice and what would happen if they got sued. And, are those things that, as you sit down with people, that they're concerned about?
I think they're concerned about it. They're definitely concerned about it. Here in California, there's quite a bit of lawsuits, and they're definitely concerned about it. But what I find is they're not really clear on how to protect themselves from lawsuits, or how to divide their business assets from their personal assets in the event of a lawsuit, so they don't lose everything. And here again is where we come in with a lot of education, and better late than never kind of attitude, but at least we start to get them, started in a structure that will protect everything they've worked so hard for all these years they've been in business.
So I love this conversation about professionals because it really is the crossover of everything from tax planning to business planning to asset protection planning and legacy planning. It's kind of the crossover of everything. And so, if you find yourself in a situation where you're a professional or you work with a professional and you haven't done this type of planning, extremely important. So super excited to have Raymond Ramirez here with us from Revolution Financial Management. Ray, tell us one more time, how can people get a hold of you if they're interested in sitting down?
Well, I'll go ahead and repeat my phone number. It's area code 714-343-9206. That's 714-343-9206. But you can also reach out to me via email. It's ray.ramirez.rfm@gmail.com. So it's ray.ramirez.rfm, Ralph Frank Mary @gmail.com.